we should all be interested in the truth. Do you agree?
I think you're talking about absolutism when such a thing doesn't exist.
So there is no truth.
You're talking about an absolutism.
Are you saying there is no truth?
One person's truth could be another person's something else.
Do you think there is no truth? This requires intelligent, conscious agency to put together. Our universe demonstrates a conscious agency which is intelligent. But you say the opposite. How do you square this up?
It doesn't have to, I don't have to square it up.
But that's why you're postulating, right?
No, because you believe in something, don't you? So
But belief has to be reasonable.
No, belief doesn't have to be reasonable.
So are you saying one can believe that tripod is the one who created the universe and they're happy with that?
No, that's just making an argument.
No. Belief needs to be reasonable. If somebody believes this tripod is the one who created this universe, which is not conscious, would you say this is a reasonable belief?
No.
Would you say that belief is okay to have?
But if someone wants to believe it, let them believe it. I can't argue if someone wants to believe that.
But is that? But in reality, is that a true representation of reality?
It may be true to that person's reputation.
In actual reality, is that a true representation of what the reality is?
There's no such thing as actual reality. There's only a perception of reality.
So you don't feel this is all real? Yeah. Yeah.
He just told me to join in.
Yeah. No, please. We are enjoying this conversation because it's not every day that we meet people from Singapore, right? So we would like to learn from you as well how do Singaporeans think. And one of the examples we talked about is, you see, someone who believes in a tripod. I asked my friend, what's your name? Paul. I'm Mansur and this is Zishan. Does that belief represent the truth in reality? Because we should all be interested in the truth. Do you agree?
I think you're talking about absolutism when such a thing doesn't exist.
So there is no truth.
You're talking about an absolutism.
Are you saying there is no truth?
One person's truth could be another person's something else.
Do you think there is no truth?
Well, there's one thing that you have to accept before you even come to the park, before you engage in conversation, before you do science, and that's existence. Do you accept at the very minimum that you exist?
Of course, otherwise we won't be here.
Exactly. So that is something that's absolute.
But you're talking about perceptions and beliefs, aren't you? I'm just saying one person's belief can be true as somebody else's belief.
Regardless of whether it's your belief or my belief, we have to accept here that you exist and I exist at the bare minimum, isn't it? So taking that aspect that there's absolutely nothing we can agree on is false. It's a false premise, and it tracks back to Descartes, who said, "I think, therefore I am," but even that's got holes in it as well. So let's just say you exist, and that's the bare minimum. Would you also accept that there is uniformity, regularity, and stability? What I mean by that is just the mere fact that we're standing here and we understand that we can leave, cars won't start flying, things won't randomly start combusting. Do you accept that there is some form of stability on this planet?
By the laws of physics.
Yeah, exactly. You accept that, yeah?
It's not necessarily driven by some divine intervention, is it? That's where we started.
Yeah, I'm not talking about divine intervention.
I'm just saying it's belief. That some things can, you can point to physics and say at any one point that's the accepted wisdom. But
Right.
things can't come.
Right. So the first premise is there is existence, which you accepted. Second premise is there is uniformity, regularity, and stability, which you've accepted. Therefore, there is an existence that explains the regularity, uniformity, and stability of nature. Do you accept that?
But then it comes down to the laws of physics versus the laws of...
I beg your pardon?
The laws of physics versus the laws of divine intervention. That's how we...
I'm just asking a very simple question.
But no, you're saying there's something that drives it, and I'm just explaining what drives it.
I'm saying that using the laws of logic,
He says he's a Buddhist.
there's two premises, therefore there is a conclusion. For you to claim that this is false, you'd have to poke holes in the premises, starting another debate or an argument. We can do that. What I'm saying is if there's existence, if there's stability, therefore there has to be an existence that explains that uniformity, regularity and stability. At the bare bones, can we at least exist? Can we at least explain that much or accept that much? Yes, excellent. So now we have existence. Now, this is where the contingency then comes in. When we look at, let's just say we are now giving attributes to that existence. If I have a bottle of water, and that's got water in it, can I take a watch out of that bottle of water?
Not unless it's watching in the first place.
Yeah. Well, no. That's why I said a bottle of water, isn't it? Yeah. Can I concoct a watch from that bottle of water? I'm assuming you're going to say no, so why not?
In the first place.
No. That's to make something, it doesn't have to exist in the first place. If I'm making a DVD player, it doesn't mean that there has to be a DVD player to begin with. Yeah, I'm sure you can see where I'm going. The necessary parts need to be in existence. Agreed? Excellent. So a bottle of water cannot create a watch because the necessary parts aren't in there, yeah?
Yes.
You agree? Okay. So the point that I'm trying to get to is, would you exist that there is free will, there is power, and there is consciousness around you?
Okay, well they're all different things. They're not to do with the physics and consciousness. They're not to do with physics.
Do you believe that you're conscious?
So I most of yes. So I do believe it, but there's no scientific underpinning to it.
Yeah, no problem. That's fine. But you believe that you're conscious. Okay. Do you believe that there is power? Just me pushing you, or the ability of force equals ma.
Okay, so like Newtonian physics kind of power.
You can take it however you want, yeah. So if there is power here, surely the existence has to have power as well, has to have consciousness as well. Agreed?
Okay, well the power itself would have consciousness. Only living things have power, have consciousness.
Only living things have power,
Have consciousness.
have consciousness. What makes you say that?
Consciousness is to do with the intellect, is the mind and your sense of your presence in the universe.
And
There's
yours,
no consciousness in a rocket stone.
really? What's your evidence for that?
There needs to be evidence. There has to be evidence the other way, doesn't it?
Not necessarily, because science is
Yeah,
going.
then I'd say it's my belief.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, no problem. But the point that I'm trying to say, sorry, what's your name? What's your name? Paul. So Paul, the point that I'm trying to say is, if you're seeing something that exists in nature, it has to exist in the existence that we have, that has created us. And I'm putting that in air quotes at the moment because I'm just leaving that up. Yeah. So it's the example of the bottle and the watch that I said. That if we accept that there's consciousness, there's power, there's will to some degree, then we have to accept that the existence also has that as well. Would you also accept that that existence has to be pre-eternal?
Pre-eternal
As in didn't come into existence, was always there. You wouldn't accept that. Okay, let's take a step back then. If we take the argument from dependency, would you accept that everything that's around us in our understanding is dependent? Is dependent on something else. You're dependent on something else, the grass is dependent on something else, concrete is dependent on something else.
Life exists only because it depends upon other things, whether it's oxygen or food or water. Yes.
Excellent. So, would you also accept that we cannot have an infinite regress of dependent things? Otherwise,
at what point you go back to point zero?
Exactly.
Okay, this I don't know. I'm not smart enough to understand the origins of the Big Bang. What was there before that? No science would say at some point there was a singularity and mass was created.
Right. What I'm saying is not to do with causality. It transcends causality. So what I'm saying is, logically speaking, let me give you an analogy for it. Yeah. That if I am going to, I don't know, throw my watch at somebody. I don't know why I would do that, but let's just say I'm going to do that. I have to ask Mansur's permission. Mansur asks this brother's permission, and we keep going ad infinitum. would I ever get to throw this watch?
If there were infinite people whose permission is needed.
No, so there's only 7 billion, so it's spread it. No.
Yeah, it's a thought experiment.
Because infinity never ends.
Exactly. So can you see the correlation that I'm making, that we cannot have an infinite regress of dependent things, otherwise we wouldn't be here to begin with. There has to be an end which philosophically we define as the necessary being for us to be here. Does that make sense?
You call it necessary being, some would call it a singularity.
Not necessarily, because the singularity also has a beginning.
Now this is the big question, isn't it?
But whatever that thing is, will not be dependent, has to be independent.
Time and space are not linear, are they?
But Paul, do you at least agree that because we have a series of dependent things, at the end, to solve this conundrum, this problem, there has to be eventually a thing or an entity or an agency that is independent.
Well, it could have just been a singularity for eternity.
Whether you call it singularity or whatever, it has to be independent.
Independent of what?
Of anything. And everything.
Okay, let me define something that's independent. It doesn't have a beginning. It's not composed of parts, and it can't be any other way. That's a philosophical definition of something that's independent. So, and something that's dependent is the opposite of that.
No, I understand your argument that at some point there had to be something to start all this off, even if it was nothing, and then that had to come into creation by something. I understand that. Then it comes down to belief, doesn't it? In terms of whether you think that was some eternal entity of...
We're not going to that yet, Paul.
No, but that's ultimately the starting point, isn't it? There has to be something that created all this. Where did that thing come from?
But you circumvented what we've actually progressed towards, which is that to say that where did that thing come from is by definition false. Because if you're saying where did that thing come from, then that thing itself is dependent. And we've already agreed that you can't have an infinite regress of dependent things. So there has to be an end to that chain, which philosophically is defined as necessary being. Aristotle might call it the first cause. Whatever you want to call it, there has to be an end, or the beginning. So when you say singularity...
Okay, sorry.
You have to go.
Sorry, we've got two young boys.
I know.
No problem.
I think this is all about giving them an education in free speech and how different debates are created.
Definitely.
In Singapore, we don't get much chance to see.
Excellent.
So I appreciate the chance.
Thank you for your time, Paul.
Thank you. I shall think about your dependency.
Yeah. So this is not just coming from a philosophical argument. We are Muslims, so Islam has, encouraged us to think and ponder that way, so that we have a belief which is firmly grounded out of conviction of informed choice, rather than simply believe by blind faith. So we would encourage you to read the Quran, which we believe is a divine guidance from our Creator, that necessary being, and that will tell us how to live our life and why we are here created, and what's going to happen to us after we die, because it's not a cycle of life and death. This is one life, one death, and the consequence. So please read the Quran and think about what we said.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a little individual who came to have a discussion with us. You don't see that in Speaker's Corner here, unless you can walk around and see people with T-shirts inciting offense.
Yeah.
That's how the difference between genuine, sincere, reasonable individual from vile, filthy individual with a mentality which is really rotten, right? So I think the discussion could have been much more progressed if we had the time, but they are a visitor, they have to go.
Yes.
So we wish that somehow they would come across, because we haven't given them in fact, if one of you can go and tell them which channels to watch, for example, they can watch this and reflect further. They're still here, so that they can think and ponder later in terms of what exactly the next step is, because he was agreeing to. But how do you make that progression to the next step of accepting that, yes, now having understood and accepted that there is a necessary being who has created us for a purpose, must be wise in his purpose. So what is that purpose? How are we going to know this? So this should have been the next step of discussion, and we hope that individuals like this gentleman, or people like this gentleman, if you're on the same boat and you feel that, you agree so far, that there is this element of a superpower. That's why you called yourself a prime mover, a first cause, a necessary being, an independent being who has no beginning. Then ask yourself, you are created by that necessary being. Why? And how are you going to find out? Do you expect that this necessary being is going to come down to you in your own home and tell you, I created you for like this? Or somehow from the sky shout at you saying, hey Alex, if that is your name, I created you for this reason. Look how big this cosmos is. People don't appreciate it. They want God, the creator, come down to their level and personally tell them, friend, this is the reason I created you. But think about how insignificant we are demanding this kind of expectation. How insignificant and small am I and you compared to this earth? Not even a speck on this earth, right? How small is this earth in our solar system? Like a speck. How small is our solar system in the Milky Way galaxy? It's like a speck. How small and insignificant is our Milky Way galaxy in the constellations of the universe? Nothing, speck. We are speck upon a speck upon a speck upon a speck, and whole world is such enormous, such gigantic universe, and yet you expect the creator to come down to you, become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and come down to an infinitely small to you and tell you, my friend, that's the reason I created you. You have the wrong expectation. That is why this has not been the way the Creator communicates with us to understand the reason of our creation. The Creator chooses from among us prophets and messengers, warners, guides, who are given proof and evidence so that people can believe in them. And the final of them was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, what evidence is that he brought is another question altogether. But you need to make your own journey to find what that is. We can share with you like we have been doing in our channels. What's your channel's name?
Smile to Jannah.
Smile to Jannah.
And what's your channel's name?
Dawahwise.
Come on.
But do watch other channels in which people are uploading the videos, the contents from Speaker's Corner. What we are saying is we have done this work for years and years. We are uploading contents in which we are having this discussion. We are engaging with these criticisms to help you to explore and to go through this journey of self-exploration and self-discovery. And finally, you will realize that the only ideology, the only religion, the only message that makes sense is Islam. Am I saying other than what is truly observed? What is observable truly? What is something that can be verifiable and verified? That Islam is the only belief system that people can have certainty of and have the certain consequences of in the hereafter if you believe in it. Salvation, in success, in joy, in tranquility, in happiness. And if you don't, for your own detriment, if you decide to go against this by your own choice, then what lies ahead? It will be failure. It will be suffering, it will be misery, it will be torture, it will be pain, it will be burning in hellfire. Do we want anyone to go to hellfire? Would you even want your enemy to go to hellfire? You might want them to be punished in this life for what they have done, but you would not want them to go to hellfire. It's not a joke, people. Hellfire is a place where you don't want anyone to go, even your enemies. Because that is a place where it is not a joyous place. It is a punishment from God for your arrogance and stubbornness. We don't want anyone to go there. And that is the very purpose why we come to here, Speaker's Corner, in our channels and Smile to Jannah, that, from our own, platform that you upload your videos and so on. We are taking our time and effort to share with you that you need to wake up to the reality. Enough of zombie scrolling. Enough of the fear of missing out, the mofo. That you think you're going to go into social media and say, oh, my life is going to be miserable if I don't go and scroll and see what's happened. No. Your life is more important than zombie scrolling. Because you will one day end up dead, like I will end up dead and you'd end up dead. are you going to find out then? It'll be too late. So before it's too late, before death approaches us, what do we have to do? Zishan, before death approaches us, what is our responsibility?
Our responsibility is to learn our purpose, is to learn what Allah has told us via the Quran, via the scripture. And like the brothers discussed, the inference to the best explanation is the Quran. It is the Prophet Muhammad. It is the message that the Prophet and the previous prophets have brought, which is there's none worthy of worship besides God, besides Allah, and the prophets are sent by God. Now if you analyze the Quran, you analyze the scriptures, you analyze the sayings and the prophecies of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, which we are not shying away from. Yeah, they're all there for you, forbidden prophecies. You can read the Quran, you can download it free from the internet. Yeah, you get a free Quran, forbidden prophecies, they are there. You can see the challenges that the Quran is making, so it's all there for you. But you have to do something yourself. You have to get out of the rat race, and a rat race which is constantly trying to get you going to work, coming home, and becoming, so engulfed with the dunya, with the world, that you forget your purpose. It's very important that we take time aside and we reflect and we ponder, like the Quran invites us to do. We're not here telling you do this, 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 and this. What we are telling you is, here is the inference and the best explanation. If you have an issue with that, open up the book. Take time aside, open up the book. Don't become a zombie scrolling. Don't become a zombie at work. Don't become a zombie just going along with the flow. What you're supposed to do is take time aside, ponder, and reflect. And then when you do these things, you will notice how Allah will open your heart to the truth.
أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لكم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.